Welcome to the Fundraising Elevator, where we're all headed up. This podcast is a production of Swaim Strategies, a consulting firm dedicated to nonprofit fundraising events. We're coming to you today from the studios of the AV department. Please welcome our hosts, Kristen Steele and Samantha Swaim.
Hello, and welcome to the Fundraising Elevator, where we're all headed up. Before we kick off today's conversation, I want to make sure you know about our fundraising event school. The Elevate Conference, coming up March 3rd and 4th, 2026, is a hybrid conference diving into fundraising events, how to raise more money, and how to move your mission forward. So you can find out more on our website, swaimstrategies.com, and you'll find a link in the show notes. We hope you'll join us. Today, we have a very special guest. Reggie Rivers is the founder and president of the Gala team, a benefit auctioneering team. He's a former NFL running back who played 6 seasons with the Denver Broncos during the 1990s. He's also worked in newspaper, radio, and television, and written 5 books. His latest, The Colony, is an allegory novel about ants. He and I met 2 years ago when we both presented at the Raise conference. I've been following his work since. We have a lot of similar overlap in that we both went into virtual production quickly during COVID. But when he presented his work on the fundraising paddle raise and the work to be done in little tips and ways that you can increase your revenue, I knew, oh, Reggie's our kind of people. So I'm so excited to have him on the show. Reggie Rivers, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Well, Sam and Kristen, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
It is lovely to find more like-minded folks who are amplifying the paddle raise at events. It's where the money, day of event revenue is. You have a great presentation that you do of 30 quick tips for planning that effective paddle raise, which helps break it down for folks because I think it is a behemoth if they look at it all at once. And these are great ways for them to be like, yep. And we want to walk through some of those with you today. We're big believers that every event should have one. It's the secret sauce to fundraising success. And the first tip you always advise on is do a paddle raise. Tell us why.
Yes. Well, that's the thing. We speak to so many nonprofits who say, oh, no, we're not doing a paddle raise because that's not part of our culture. It's not what our donors are used to. It's not. We tried it one time a few years ago, and it was just so cringy and awkward that we never wanted to do it again. But we look at it and say, well, really, the paddle raiser is the one time during your event that you're selling your mission. That's it. Everything else is some type of retail exchange. The sponsors, they're donating some money, but they get something in exchange for it. They get a table with 10 seats. They get drink tickets. They get signage. They get mentions during the event. The people who buy tickets to come and attend, they're giving you money, but they get something for it. People who bid in your live auction and your silent auction, they only owe the money if they win the item. And so in that way, everything about the event is, yes, we're raising money, but we're giving something back to every person who gives us money. And what I've just realized over the years is that people will donate way more money to you if you get that thing out of the way that you're giving them. That thing limits their giving because we are a nation full of consumers. We can't help but put a price on anything that you offer me. If you say, hey, everyone who donates $1,000, I'm going to bring you a bottle of water, just by holding up that bottle of water, you trigger my brain's natural thing. Well, that's not worth $1,000.
Yeah.
That thought comes in. And so we just realized that when you're doing a paddle raiser and you're inviting, all you're doing is selling your mission. You're saying, this is what we do. This is the impact we're having. And this is why we need your support. So many nonprofits are blown away by how much money people will simply donate to them if they just ask and get all that other stuff out of the way.
I love that because we often talk about this in the language of transaction. Right. And I love what you say about holding up that water bottle and all of a sudden that part of the brain's like, okay, what the hell kind of water is in that bottle for $1,000, right? It's a different mechanism. It's a different piece of engagement. And I can go get that bottle of water at a lot of corner shops, right? But your mission, I can't go get somewhere else. My engagement in your mission and my ability to move my personal want a mission in the world I want to see forward by engaging with you is not something I can go get somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so it seems like a no-brainer. And yet I love hearing folks out there really building that case, because I do think, people try it once badly. Uncle Joe is their auctioneer, right? Not well-versed in collecting money for a mission, or they didn't have paddles, or there's a million reasons why, but they tried it once, it didn't work, and they're never going to do it again because it left a bad taste in people's mouth. But when done well, that room sings.
Yeah. It's also the opportunity, I think, to turn your event from a $100,000 event to $1 million event. It is the big moment. And we opened our season 3 with a discussion with neuroscientist Dr. Paul Zak, and he talked about without that moment, without that call to action, you are leaving people with a sense of dissatisfaction because you didn't invite them in. You didn't give them a way to be a part of your mission. So we couldn't agree more, Reggie. Do a paddle raise.
Right. Now, and invite them in. And before you ask your next question, I'd like to just tag on to that, is that we talk about the live auction with our clients too. And we say, let's say you have 500 people in a room and you have 5 live auction items. Well, that means that 1% of your audience is going to win an item, and 1% is going to be the first loser. So the second place bidder, that 2% of your audience is really engaged in the live auction. The remaining 98% is just waiting for it to be over. Maybe waiting patiently, but they're sitting at their table. Maybe they're slightly entertained by the live auction. Maybe they start having a conversation with a person sitting next to them. Maybe they go up to go to the bar. Maybe they step outside to smoke a cigarette. Maybe they go outside to go to the restroom. But every event, every item that you have, your audience gets a little bit more disengaged. And if you do 8 to 10 items, you've got to find a way to re-corral the audience after that, because they're fully disengaged. Whereas the paddle raiser has a different effect. It's like at the beginning, you've only engaged a tiny part of your audience. Other people are watching and looking, but they're like, $10,000, that's crazy. Who would do that? And as you go down the levels, you engage more and more and more and more of your audience. And it's just the opposite effect is happening. And we've seen it be incredibly successful.
Well, and I'd like to underscore this is coming from the auctioneer.
Yes.
Right? I think that carries a lot of weight in a room.
Well, and it's inclusive. Everyone can be a part of it, unlike the $10,000 auction package.
That's right.
Okay, I want to talk about the paddle. In your presentation, you give a lot of tips and a lot of recommendations about the paddle. We have started to use a lot of technology in our events, but we still always use the paddle in the paddle raise because it builds on energy, momentum, impulse. There's no barrier to me just like raising that paddle up. It's so easy to do. You can do it quickly and maybe even quicker than you thought you were going to do it. I'd love to talk to you about sort of the paddle versus the cell phone. What do you recommend? And kind of when you are using a paddle, what are your tips for the paddle?
Yeah, I love this question because putting a physical paddle in everyone's hands, we think is critical. And I'm going to give you 2 analogies. Analogy number 1 is, you're at a sporting event, it's 4th down. If your team's defense stops them, you're going to win the game. And the announcer says, it's 4th and 8. If we stop them here, we win this game. Everybody make some noise, right? 76,000 people are going crazy, making noise. Versus if you said, it's 4th and 8. If we stop them here, we win this game. Everybody send a text to your favorite player. Right? I mean,
that's so good.
We're just triggering a completely different part of our brains. And we're not doing something together. People have come to your fundraising event to do something together. That's the reason they're there. This is 500 out of 8 billion people on the planet. They could have been anywhere. These people made plans to be at your event. They put it on their calendar. They got a babysitter. They picked out the clothes they were going to wear. They spent time getting dressed. They drove through rush hour traffic to get there. These people are special. These people are showing up and they're telling you, I care about you. I care about your mission. Mm-hmm. I'm interested in what you're doing. I'm here. And then if you don't even ask them for any support, they kind of walk away like, man, how many signals do I have to give you
Right.
that I'm interested? Your radar is not really working well. I think I'm batting my eyes pretty effectively trying to tell you that I'm ready. Okay, another analogy on why use physical paddles. When I go to a basketball game or a hockey game and the kissing cam comes on,
Oh boy, trouble
it is
we've learned recently.
yes, it's fascinating to me, the psychology of that. Because let's say you have an elderly couple, they've been married for 50 something years, the camera comes on them. This is a very conservative couple. They would never kiss in front of 20,000 people. That's just not what they do. They're not into PDA like that. However, the kissing cam is kind of a contract. The kissing cam is, this is my significant other. I don't want to embarrass him or her in this moment. So we're going to kiss. Our faces are flushed. We're so embarrassed. We're smiling. We will be talking about this moment for the rest of our lives. Oh my God. Remember that time the kissing cam came on us? Right. And so that's what I feel the paddle raiser is. Now, a lot of nonprofits will say, oh, our people are too modest. They don't want to raise up a paddle. They don't want to draw attention to themselves. But the paddle raiser kind of puts them in a position where this is what you have to do if you want to support this organization. You're not showing off. You're not being immodest. This is just what's required. Just like the kissing cam, you guys would never do that under normal circumstances. But because of the circumstances, you are forced to do it, and you enjoy that you're forced to do it. And so that's been our experience, is that people love participating in the paddle raiser. And when it's a record-breaking night, they're walking out the door thinking, oh my gosh, this was incrable. What did we do tonight?
Mm-hmm. Well, what did we do?
That's what I was going to say. We made that happen.
I was a part of that. And yet we know not all paddles are created equal.
Right.
What do you need as someone standing on stage looking at these paddles to get this money in the can? What do paddles need to be for folks?
I will tell you that paddles, I'm going to back up just a hair here so that I can demonstrate. Most of the time when somebody is designing a paddle, they hold that paddle at arm's length and they say, that looks really cute. These, look at that. Rebecca, you like this font? That looks really nice, doesn't it? And they're like, oh yeah, that's really cute. We've had everything. We did a symphony event one year where they made their paddles look like musical notes.
No.
Cut in the shape of musical notes, and the numbers were vertical on the paddle. And so you're holding it up, and we've seen everything. We've seen all kinds of designs. We've seen all kinds of fonts. What you want to do is you want to think, how does somebody read that number from 200 feet away?
Yes.
Because that's really what you have to be doing. And it has to be instantly legible. The digits have to be distinguishable from each other. The 2 can't look like a 3 and look like a 5 and from a distance. And so you want it to be white with black numbers. You want to choose a font where every part of the number is the same width. Mm-hmm. Most fonts, that's not true. Most fonts have skinny parts and fat parts. You want a number that every part of that number, or a font where every part of the number is the same width. And then you want to be a big blocky font. And I wish I could tell you what font size, but you want to be a big blocky font that it's easy to read from a distance, because there is a speed that's required to have a good paddle raiser.
Yeah.
Like it can get too boring for people if they're, all right, number 426 and number 31, right? If the auctioneer is doing that, it only takes about 10 numbers for everybody to just start to get exhausted by the whole thing. It needs to be number 427, number 338, number 414, number 273. That it just has this nice steady rhythm. And by having that rhythm, it's easy for your recorders who are writing down all those numbers to write them down.
Yes.
It's easy for the audience to know when you've said their number and they lower their paddle. It just makes the ease increases your revenue, just the easier you make it.
It's not a time to be cute.
No, it's not. Big, bold,
it's just
plain,
not
simple.
a time to be cute. And I have a question about staff time and resources invested in making them cute.
Right.
We could go get a pre-commit for said paddle raise with that energy and time.
Right.
When you take the stage at events, often you take the stage and have everybody put their paddles in the air. Talk to us about that.
Yes, at the very beginning, and I learned this the hard way. Originally, back when I started off as benefit auctioneer, I would say, "All right, hey, it's time for the paddle raiser," and I would look around and I would notice that a lot of people don't even have their paddles.
Right.
And so, just kind of as a business tip, it started to become, "Hey, everybody, let's take some pictures and put on social media. Everybody, just hold up your paddle. Let's just take some pictures. It doesn't cost you anything at the moment. Just going to take some pictures to show everybody how much support they're giving." Well, now the reason for doing that, we have a whole little preamble that we do, but it is to create our first bit of emotional and psychological conditioning of this audience. Number one is we make sure that they have their paddle. It was issued to them 2 or 3 hours ago when they checked in. We want to make sure now it's in their hand and it's in the air. It's not under their plate. It's not under their chair. It's not in their pocket. It's not in their purse. It's in their hand. Number two, we got our first yes from the audience, right? A good salesperson is always looking for yeses. Hey, is this a bottle of water? Yes. Is today Monday? Yes. Is that your significant other? Yes. Are those your kids? Yes. Right? We want yeses. Well, we just got our first yes from the audience, doing for free what we're going to ask them to do for money in a little bit. Number three is that we've planted teamwork for the first time. Like while they got them raised up, we're going to say something like, look around you. Look at the size of the team that we have in this room. You know, alone, any one of us can only do so much. Together as a team, we can make a big impact. We made our first call to action. Like while they got them raised up, we're going to say something like, all right, we're going to do our paddle raise and we're going to start off high and work our way down. I hope that each of you who just now raised your paddle will raise it again tonight when you hear a level that matches your means. Like a lot of the audience, they were not aware that they were going to be asked for support. They were just passengers. They were invited to the event and it didn't occur to them. And now they've been asked for the first time. They've been put on notice that they're going to be asked again. And we just feel like this is a powerful way to accomplish all of that. Just asking everybody to hold up their paddles is a way for us to start to condition the environment in which we're going to do this fundraising.
It's so much strategy. And I think sometimes for an audience member, it's like, oh, here we go. They're going to put that photo up of everybody's cards in the air. And it's like, yes, that's the level of engagement. But I love all of those layers.
The neuroscience
that's happening behind that it's actually priming the pump for everybody to get on this train.
I'm going to start adding more yeses to my...
I love it.
To my like initial programming, getting people to say yes more often.
A minute ago, you mentioned a very important person, the recorder. We all know that those digits on a bid card, no matter what block text they are put in or how big the piece of paper, they are just numbers flying around in the ether if there's not something that's charging them at checkout. Can you talk about the recorder, what that process is? Because I think sometimes folks think it's magic.
That is true. And so we recommend that you have 3 people as your recorders. And they have clipboards. They're pre-designed so that they have places to write down the numbers for each dollar amount, like $10,000 and $5,000 and $2,500. And what they're going to do is they're going to keep their heads down and they're going to listen to the numbers that the auctioneer is writing or calling out. So their heads down, number 471, number 223, number 667, number 383. They're just writing these numbers down. So why do we want them writing it down? As opposed to many charities will say, they'll start to tell us, okay, hey, we're ready for the paddle raiser. And we've got 12 people who are set up all around and each of them is assigned to a section. And when they see somebody raise their paddle, they're going to write that paddle number down. And well, that's chaos. When you have 3 people writing them down with their heads down, they're not looking up to look at numbers. They are heads down writing it. What you end up with is 3 sets of numbers that were written down in the same order at the same time. And so you can instantly audit. If one of them says 374, but the other 2 say 347, then you can reasonably anticipate that, the one person transposed a number. And yes, it makes for really easy auditing at the end of the event.
I always recommend that I am frequently a recorder at an event. And I always recommend that recorder, if they know they missed a number, just skip the space and circle it so they can easily see where in the lineup they can come back and compare to the other folks. I always appreciate the 3-number system. I think that anyone who does anything other than a 3-number system throws off that auditory pattern. So if you have a paddle that's number 42 and another paddle that's 142, the 142 is a really easy way to sort of make sure that you're writing it down and not transposing and not getting confused. So back to the bid paddle printing, 3-digit numbers, please. So then it's nice and simple.
Right. We always say that start at 100, not at 1.
Yes.
So sometimes they'll say, oh, well, our most important donor is going to get number 1, and we're going to start from there. And so now you're reading off numbers, number 7, number 43, number 167, right? It's so much easier for the recorders if every digit or every number is 3 digits.
But it's also so much easier for you on stage.
Yeah.
You can get into a rhythm and know, I would anticipate that you can get into a rhythm and know if you've missed a digit or not.
Correct. Yes, that's exactly correct. And so, again, it gets to the point of how do we make this easy? How do we make it smooth? Smooth is fundraising. Like smoothness is lubrication that allows the money to just flow in.
Yes.
Everything that's not smooth is friction that kind of stops the money from coming in.
Yep. Well, one of the things that you teased earlier was sort of this idea of group activities. You do that with the first ask of asking folks to raise their paddle for a photo. What other group activities do you deploy and why? Like, why are you including that in your sort of thoughtfulness about creating that sort of ease?
Several things that we do with group activity. So let's say that we know our lead donor is at $10,000. And we know that to most people, that's going to sound like a ridiculously large amount of money.
Yeah.
So we'll deliberately start one level above that, just one, not 5 levels above, one level. We'll say, anyone want to start us off at $15,000 tonight? And we'll pause and we'll look. That's our first group activity. That entire audience gets silent and still because at first they think it's a joke. There's always like a little bit of laughter. But then if you stand there and you're looking at them sincerely and they realize you're sincere, that's the first group activity that they're having. It's like, oh my gosh, and nobody wants to move. Then when we go to the next level, say, okay, well, let's step down just a hair. How about $10,000? And our lead donor's paddle goes up in the air. That is another group activity. As a group, some sense of disbelief has just been pierced by that gift. They're like, oh my gosh, somebody's donating $10,000. And then the third group activity is we're going to give everybody else credit for that gift, right? That's what you do when you're on a team. When I'm watching a Broncos game, I say, hey, we scored. I'm like, I haven't been on the field in 30 years. What are you talking about? We scored. They scored. It's like, no, when you feel like part of the team, we scored. And so if our donor, Mr. Smith, say, and we agreed it beforehand that we would recognize him by name, and we say, hey, thank you, Mr. Smith. We appreciate your commitment, your continued commitment. You've been a board member for many years. Thank you for continued leadership. Anyone want to join Mr. Smith at this level? And I say, okay, so we've got one gift so far at $10,000. Together as a team, we have raised $10,000. So we immediately give the whole audience credit for Mr. Smith's gift because, he scored for our whole team. Every time one of us gives a goal or gives a donation, we're scoring for the team. One other example of how we'll use teamwork, if we're keeping track of how many donors we have at each level, and I'll have somebody, we call it a gala attendant, who's just kind of doing a tally sheet. And I'll say, how many people was that? And they say, that was 27 people at $1,000. Could we get 3 more people? Can we get 3 more people to help us get to $30,000 on this level?
I like big round numbers.
Yes, we like round numbers. Not all heroes wear capes. Some of them hold up their paddles during fundraising events. Yeah. And invariably, we get 3 people who raise their paddles up. The audience cheers. And so those are all examples of how this is a team sport, that we really emphasize that we're doing this together as a team.
Yep. I think that's so great for a couple of reasons. One, that collective action piece, I think when we as fundraisers are sort of looking at our pre-commits and looking at our levels, we're looking at individual donors and we're not taking the other 300 people in the room into account. And the energy and the collective action but we're relying on that to tip things, right? To be a part of our fundraising. And so we actually have to think about it strategically as part of the fundraising when we're looking at that grid. What I also love about that is you're encouraging donors to look at each other. And I'm on this really big kick right now. There is the stage and there's the person on the stage, but as donors, we're watching and interacting with each other as well in a room. And what you're talking about is minimizing distance. And it's just a powerful, powerful tool for fundraising, I think.
Well, this to me also makes the case of why you need an expert up on the stage doing that. I think sometimes, Reggie, we experience as planners that we are in conversation with a lot of strategy and a lot of expertise around how you can really take your paddle raise to the next level. And then they say that they're going to have their board chair do it. And I'm like, wait a minute. The level of expertise, all this nuance that you bring to the stage makes a huge impact in the ability to raise those funds and to feel good about it. Because the novice who hasn't had this experience, I mean, Reggie, I'm assuming you're doing several events a week. You're bringing that lived experience every single time you're on the stage. So you have a lot more tips. I want to dive more into them. We're going to take a short break, get a word from our partners, and we'll be right back.
Ready for your hard work to yield more funds at your next event? Join us at Elevate, a nonprofit fundraising event conference designed to bring our community together and make planning successful events easier. Register today for this hybrid conference on March 3rd and 4th, 2026 in Portland, Oregon, or join us online from anywhere. This isn't just another conference. You'll walk away with battle-tested strategies, hands-on tools, and proven templates that top fundraisers use to raise millions. Your mission deserves fully funded success. Register today at swaimstrategies.com.
Welcome back. We are here talking with Reggie Rivers, who during the break we were just talking about, it is so lovely to meet folks that get it.
Yeah.
And that get what is at the core of successful fundraising and what that can look like for folks and how that can really transform missions and organizations with the same things, right? All the same components in a room for your event, and yet strategy and sequence and momentum and all of those things can really bear out different results. So we're so excited to be in this conversation. Reggie, what advice do you have on giving thermometers?
Well, I am not a fan of thermometers, although, I'm a huge fan of letting the audience know how they're doing. I'm a huge fan of updating the audience on what the fundraising total is. I've been in too many events where the risks of the thermometer show up. And it's just, once these risks show up, it's hard to get around them. So here's a couple of the risks. Number one, if you're going to use a fundraiser thermometer, you really have to have a very accurate guess about how much your guests are going to give.
Yeah.
And you want them to then exceed your thermometer by 1% or 2%. Let's say, for example, that last year you raised $100,000. And this year, you're hoping to do the same. You're like, hey, we're just going to set our goal at $100,000. Well, this year, your audience exceeds $100,000, and you still have 3 levels left of your paddle raiser. And you say, hey, we just hit our goal of 100,000, but let's see how far we can go. Well, the whole audience is like, what are you talking about? You said you needed 100. We just gave you 100. We're done here.
Yep.
What do you mean you're going to keep going to these other levels? We just did it. So there's a danger of setting your level too low, or there's a danger of setting it too high. Let's say that last year you did 100,000. This year you say, let's set our fundraising thermometer at 150. And so now this audience donates $138,000. They did $38,000 better than they did the year before, but they all feel like they failed because that thermometer is showing them they did not hit the goal.
Yeah.
And so this to me are the biggest risks of the thermometer, that you just have to set it so right. Otherwise, it has the effect of either disincentivizing your donors or discouraging them after the fact that they didn't reach the goal. And so we think it's better to just kind of make up um, make up your goals as you go along. Like, if we're getting close to $100,000, I don't care how many levels we have left. I'm going to say, man, we are on the cusp of $100,000. Could we get 3 more people to help us get there right now?
Yeah.
And so we get those 3 people, and then boom, we go on with the next levels. We didn't say 100,000 is our absolute goal for the night. It's just like we happen to be close to that milestone, and I think that works out better.
It gives you a lot more flexibility, I think, on the stage too, to bring your strategy in the moment, especially when you understand the flow and the rhythm of the audience, when you're in front of them enough that you've understood, oh, they're excited, they're really engaged, they're giving a lot. It allows you to keep moving that needle, so to speak, that you can sort of set new goals for yourself until it's the opportune moment to announce it to the audience. Like, we like big round numbers. 3 more gifts is going to get us to that 300,000.
Well, and can I just add here as a plug, that is one of the hugest reasons why you engage a benefit auctioneer.
Yes.
They are looking at that strategy in real time.
Yeah.
They are feeling the room in real time. They are helping move that needle in alignment with the momentum and what's happening versus, nope, I'm just driving through these levels and these items until we get to the end. There's nuance to it. And by engaging a benefit auctioneer like Reggie, you have a partner who's doing that work on stage for you, because you're not up on stage. You're in the room and you're watching, and you've done the pre-event strategy, and they can help capitalize the energy and momentum in that room.
Reggie, I'll give you a yes and. We do sometimes incorporate the thermometer when we are able to assess really clearly the patterns and behavior of this audience and come in with really specific goals that we feel like this is actually going to drive that giving, because it's going to create a sense of collective action. So on occasion, we do find, now, prior to the pandemic, we would never have utilized, because I think the thermometer does set that threshold and can sort of disappoint, right? Because it stops the giving. Where during the pandemic, we used it so much because all the technology platforms utilized it, that we did find that if we were able to do that strategic assessment, we knew the donors well, we knew their pattern, we had already set up some of the big pre-committed gifts, we could come in with an informed decision point around it and utilize that really as like a driving tool. Because when you hit that, it's a sort of moment of aha. Did you happen to watch the Emmys?
No, I didn't.
This year? So this year, the Emmys incorporated an element that was it was like a fun game, but it was really smart, that if speakers went over in their time, for every second they went over, there was a $100,000 gift on the line to a nonprofit Boys and Girls Club, and they would deduct for your going over.
Every second was an add or a subtract of $1,000.
And
Wow.
if you were short and you didn't use the full 45 seconds, they would add back on. And at the end of the night, they had gone like negative 26,000 or something crazy. But the whole audience had this moment of like sitting out in anticipation where he said, well, let's see where we're at. And he pulled it up and they were like negative in the hole. And he's like, I made money on this. But then the host announced that he was anyway going to make a donation and that the Emmys were throwing in a matching gift. And the audience went nuts because that moment of we did this together, that teamwork, that collective action.
Even though, to Reggie's point, 99% of that audience was not on stage, accepting the awards. They literally had nothing to do with the length of thank you speeches. And yet they were like, we did that.
They were invested. Yeah, it felt good.
Yeah. You know what? LeBron James is the only one who makes the shot as LeBron James. The rest of us just celebrate as if we made that shot.
Right?
That's
That's right.
That's amazing. Well, I want to talk about couples. You encourage that couples in attendance matter. Tell us why.
can I make one more comment about thermometers
Oh, yeah.
before we move on? So what you were describing, where you do an analysis and you have a really good guess about where you're going to end up, I think that's a perfect way to use the paddle raiser. And if you pair that with a gap closer,
Yeah.
somebody who's on your board or one of your big donors to say, hey, when we get close, if we get within a certain range, will you be our gap closer? Will you close the gap on that? And so that by having those two things together, strategically choosing what your paddle or your thermometer is going to be set at, and then having a gap closer, you're able to mitigate that risk of people feeling disappointed.
Well, and it allows that gap closer to be the LeBron James, right?
That's right.
Like he comes in or she comes in and raises that paddle and is like the superhero when it crosses that threshold and everyone cheers because we did it together.
Right.
Well, talk to us about couples. So you encourage couples in attendance. Tell us why that matters.
Because we have learned that if you really want to raise a lot of money, you need couples in the room. In good relationships, one part of a couple doesn't go out and spend a bunch of money without consulting the other member. That's just the reality. If you're at an event and that's happening where you see people who are just making huge donations without ever considering, you're in a room full of people who are about to get divorced. But in good relationships, here's what happens. I see it from the stage I've been seeing it for the past 20 years. You're on the stage, you're asking for $5,000. You see a couple, they glance at each other like that. They looked at each other for less than a second. But in that look was 15 years worth of conversation.
Yeah.
And then one of them raises the paddle up.
Yep.
And it happens all over the room all the time. It is very subtle. And you can miss it if you're not looking for it. But when you're up there so often and you're seeing it so often, it is clear to make this type of financial commitment, you need both of them to be right there in the room so they can have that glance at each other. It's the reason that luncheons don't raise as much as dinners.
Yeah.
It's the reason that breakfast events don't raise as much as dinners. It's the reasons that golf tournaments don't raise as much as dinners. It's the reason. The reason is at these dinners, you have a higher percentage of couples in the room. And we think that if you really want to raise money, you've got to have couples in the room.
I concur. There's an element too where if you've done your job right as a fundraising planner, as an event producer, you've also primed both of them to feel connected, emotionally invested, to have that oxytocin and dopamine release where they're both in it because it feels like the right thing to do. When one person's out of the room, it's really hard to get the other person to not think about, well, we haven't had a conversation about this and what is my spouse going to think? I know. So Kristen and I are married and there are times where we have a conversation in advance because I'm going to an event. Kristen tends to manage the budget details a lot closer than I do. So we'll have a conversation about our spending before I go. But the truth is you want Kristen in that room because Kristen knows for certain where we're at. And I, without a conversation with Kristen, will be
I've set her thermometer limit
Right.
before she goes.
We'll have a conversation about $100 to $500 feels good. I'll make a donation while I'm there. But if Kristen's in the room and we have heard a really effective story and we feel really good and the giving is on fire and this is something so fun, Kristen will throw that paddle up much higher and I'll be like, oh, great. We're giving it $1,000 tonight. So that energy is something that has to do with, like you said, 15 years, layers of conversations about giving and spending and what feels right and who's connected and how we're connected. When we're there, we're both feeling that connection.
Yep.
So I concur with you. I think that it makes a huge difference. And the organizations that transition from breakfast and lunch events into gala dinner events see a huge growth just from that one element alone.
Yep.
Yeah, it's true. In my relationship, I'm the trigger puller. So my wife, she might do all the research. She has, she's ready to buy a new car. She's done all the research. She's driven her last car for 5 years. For 4 years, she bought 4 different Acura MDXs. She had each one of, so for 20 years, that's what she drove, a
Uh-huh.
black Acura MDX. And every time it was time to buy another one, she would do all the research, look at all these other cars, then decide she wants another Acura MDX. But she would never go down to that dealership and just do it, just make the decision. She would like, well, will you just come look at it, just make sure, because I'm the trigger puller. She needs
Uh-huh.
me to be there to actually just say, yeah, let's go. And it's across a wide variety of things that I'm the trigger puller for her. And then on the flip side, she's like, I'll never call customer service for anything. My cable could be out for 10 days. I won't call customer service. She will call customer. She'll sit on it for an hour. You know, we have our roles in the relationship, and it's different. But to get the best of us, you need both of us at these different moments.
It's true.
It is true.
It makes a difference.
Let's talk about the actual room setup. What are elements that a planner should be thinking about to help prepare you for a great appeal when they're thinking about event logistics?
Is that a question to me?
Yeah.
Can I just
You
put
make
my
your
head
wish
down for
list.
just
Make your wish list, Reggie, and we'll make it happen.
Okay. I have to lead off with something that I know is going to hurt the feelings of some of the people in your audience, and I apologize for
It's
that
okay.
in
It's a
advance.
podcast.
Tall centerpieces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tall centerpieces are the bane of my existence as an auctioneer. More than anything else, I feel like tall centerpieces create a barrier between
Yeah.
the person who's on the stage and the members of the audience that is as secure a barrier as, say, a dam keeping a reservoir of water from moving through. It and people will say, well, no, we've got monitors up so they can see the stage. It's not the same. It's
No.
not necessarily whether they can see the person who's on the stage through a monitor. It is whether the person on the stage can make eye contact with them.
Yep.
Yes.
There is a disconnect, and any barrier that we put up causes that, and it just slows down the fundraising. When it's time, people are raising their paddles, and they tend to raise it right to the height of the
Yeah.
centerpiece. It's, and you made them tall and skinny so people could sit at their tables and not be distracted while they're having conversation at their table, but they raise it up right to the height of that. And it's hard to read when you have trouble reading it and people don't feel like you're seeing their number. They just drop their number down. They give up on it. Like kids in elementary school drop their hand after they've been holding it up for so long. And I understand how controversial that is, because tall centerpieces are part of the ethos of the event sometimes. It's like, we have this amazing decor. That's why people come. Tall centerpieces are the reason that you got a great discount from your florist, because they do a lot of weddings and they see this as an opportunity to demonstrate to 500 people what they could do at a wedding. And so, it's blasphemy to say, don't do tall centerpieces. However, I think if you want to raise a lot of money, you have to have low centerpieces.
Well, and you also, I think, as the introvert in the room, you don't want to give people a place to hide.
Right.
To your making eye contact point, if I can duck behind a centerpiece.
Well, not just eye contact, though. Reggie indicated earlier that when you have a couple in the room, you see that body language between them. I've seen auctioneers catch a bid before the paddle even went up, that, a person was sitting there thinking about it and they just gave a nod or a twitch of the finger. Like, the ability for you to be scanning that room and really seeing the energy, the vibe, the connections, the interest. Is there someone giving you that stare down from across the back of the room that you need to pull in and engage? You lose all that if you have tall centerpieces.
Here's a simple example of that. I'm going to take a piece of paper here. Let's pretend that this is someone's paddle.
Uh-huh.
And so let's say it was during a live auction, this person has this paddle in their hands and it's just down here, and then they raise it up and they sit it down here again, and they raise it up and it's down here, but it is in their hand. And as long as that paddle is in their hand, that's a little sign that, they're going to keep bidding. And what happens, though, is that people will get to a point where they've set it out of their hand, it's now sitting on the table, and it's going to take an act of Congress to get them to pick that paddle up and make another bid. They might still do it, but when they go from it's in their hand to now it's on the table. And so a lot of times when you're looking around, those are indications you can tell. And then with couples, you can see if what'll happen is that they've put it on the table, and then you've announced some amount, and one of them picks it up, and there's a look between them, and you just know that decision to pick it up, that was 80% of the conversation.
Yeah.
With the significant other. They just picked it up and put it in their hand, and then that glance was the 20% say, yeah, go ahead.
Yep.
And so it is all that kind of stuff. It is so subtle, but when you're up there all the time and seeing it all the time, it seems very obvious.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. Well, I want to ask you about the story. So when we are getting ready to ask folks to give, we always recommend that folks include a single story of impact that really demonstrates the mission. I'm curious, in your recommendations, what makes a good appeal story, like that piece of storytelling that happens right before you ask for a donation?
Yeah, it needs to be personal, and ideally it's about one person, one family, as small as you can get it. It's not about your overall mission and all the stuff that you do for all the people, because people don't donate to statistics, people don't donate to causes, people donate to people.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example. I used to be a weekend sports anchor for CBS 4 in Denver, and I think it was Hurricane Katrina, but it was a hurricane, and there was we're doing all these stories about people being rescued and seeing people on their roofs. Well, at one point, a helicopter camera zooms in on a dog that's stuck on a roof, and our phone lines blew up. Like, everybody's calling in, hey, what happened with that dog? Whose dog was that? Who's going to get that dog? Did somebody go get that dog? And I remember thinking, there's all these people that are down there. Everybody's calling about this dog. What in the world is going on? Well, later I realized what was going on. They knew someone was coming for the people. Yeah. They didn't know if anyone was coming for the dogs. And that dog became emblematic of all the dogs and cats and other pets that were in that area. And so we ended up doing stories about this dog. There was research, done to find out who owned the dog. Did the dog get rescued? Hey, here's video of the dog being returned to its owner. The arc of that whole story was told. And when I got into benefit auctioneering, I started to understand, that's what happens when you show people a video of your mission and you boil it down to one patient or one person or one student or whatever it is. And you say, this is the work we do. This is how it has impacted this person. And here's the outcome that we were able to achieve. People can emotionally attach to that story. And that is what will be the driver of emotion during the paddle raiser.
I couldn't agree more.
Yep. Ding, ding.
Agree.
Pre-committed gifts are magic. They create momentum in your paddle raise and your special appeal. Talk to us about what you advise clients to do to secure those lead gifts.
Yeah, you want to make sure you're having conversations with your board members and or your biggest donors to help them understand that if let's say they may already make a gift to you annually, to make that gift during their paddle raiser, there's so much role modeling and leadership that comes into that when they make that donation publicly in front of everybody else, they're making another statement that, hey, I'm raising my hand to testify that I believe in this nonprofit. I believe in the work that they're doing. I believe in the efficiency with which they're doing it. I believe in the impact that they're having on our community. I believe in it so much, I'm donating $10,000 again, like I did last year and the year before and the year before, because I believe in this. There's a lot of leadership and role modeling in that you need to have people do that out in front of everybody else. It's not enough to just put their name up on the screen and say, hey, so-and-so donated $10,000. It's different when the whole audience watches so-and-so raise his or her paddle to actually make that gift.
I also think you're teaching the audience when you say there's leadership in that.
Yep.
I feel like there's a great opportunity for those who are new to event fundraising, who haven't been to a fundraising event before, to see how easy it is. That moment of, oh, they just did it. Oh, they just did it. And it creates an instant sense of trust. If we have crickets and crickets and crickets, we're teaching our audience distrust.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to regain that. But when we have those paddles go up right away, it teaches your audience this is someone who is testifying for us, who believes in us, and people trust us and are giving. I've been to those events where no paddles go up for the first couple levels, and you sit there and you go, oh no, what's wrong? Why aren't people giving? So it's, I think, a game changer.
Yeah, it really is. And that's why we say, find out where your lead donor is.
Mm-hmm.
And so you know for sure who's coming in at what
Mm-hmm.
level. And then start only maximum one level above that. Do not start, because to me, I have a lot of rich friends. And let me just, for all of our people in the nonprofit world who don't understand what rich people do. Sometimes people will say, well, there's people with a lot of capacity in this room. They might get a wild hair and donate $100,000. And I'm like, nope. That's
not the
thing.
wild hair they're getting.
It's not a thing.
I mean, could that happen? Yes.
Statistically,
is it possible? Yes. Statistically, yes. It is possible that's going to happen. But no, that they didn't get rich by having that kind of wild hair. That's not what they do. If they're going to donate $100,000, you will know about that before it happens on that night.
Yes.
And so if you know that your lead donor is at $10,000, don't start at $100,000 and think that somebody's going to get a wild hair, and then go to $50,000 and think someone's going to get a wild hair. And then at 25, all you're doing at that point is training the audience that it's okay to sit on your paddles. Look at the big boys and girls who are doing it. I can certainly do it down at my level.
Yep. Agree. Well, you said down at my level. So let's talk about the low end of the giving thermometer. You recommend that you don't go below the $100 level. So we started our top donation level where we know we have gifts coming in, $10,000 donor. We continue 5, 25,000, 500, 250, 100. Why do you recommend stopping at the $100 level?
The paddle raiser is a fundraiser for people who have the funds to give. And I get the notion to try to be as inclusive as possible, to say, hey, we want to include our teachers are all in this room, and we want them to be able to make a donation too. And it's like, you know what? The teachers they give every day. They give of themselves. This is not for them. This is for the people who don't do what the teachers do, who are going to support financially. And the reason that I say this is that everybody who walked through that door of your event is looking for some indication from you about what is a meaningful gift. Mm-hmm. What is it that you're actually asking for? And so I always think of the wedding registry example, is that if you're going to someone's wedding, they're not a close friend, they're not a close family member, but you're going to get them something from the registry. If you go on and their cheapest thing is $25, you'll get it and you'll feel good and you'll say, hey, this was on their list. They said they needed it. I got them this thing that they identified and said that they wanted. You feel good. If you go to that same person's registry and the cheapest thing is $100, you might grouse about it a little bit. Oh gosh, I wasn't expecting to spend $100. I don't know you that well. But if you're committed, you're going to buy the $100 thing because that's what is on their list, what they said they needed. When people walk into your charity event, they're looking to you for some kind of indication. What do you need from me? What's a meaningful gift? And all of a sudden they're bombarded with, oh, hey, do our wine toss for $20, buy a raffle ticket for $10, buy da-da-da-da for this much, da-da-da-da-da for that much. And they're getting all these little nickel and dime amounts. And at some point, they take your word for it. They say, oh, okay, yeah, you said that $25 is what you need. Here you go. I'm done. I'm not making another gift tonight. And so we think, A, you got to avoid that kind of nickel and dime stuff.
Agree.
At the beginning.
Yeah.
And then 2, in the paddle raiser, just let them know you're stopping at $100. You're not going below $100.
Yep.
We want to pull people up to that $100 level.
Yep. That is exactly
it.
Exactly it.
Well, in light of sort of pulling away all those games and activities that are low dollar transaction, and like you said at the beginning, moving away from the retail experience and training your donors to be donors, one of the ways that we have really sort of managed that experience for folks is we've removed all of the transaction. So no silent auction, no raffle. We even have organizations that will have like a plethora of support from a committee that they're able to procure auction packages. We'll recommend they put that in an online auction at another time, separate from their event, and simply hold an online auction as a different type of fundraiser that is a retail transaction. But in their event, when folks come in, we focus on the paddle raise. We really get focused on this being the number one revenue generator. But if folks have concerns about the accessibility of it and do feel that need to go lower, we will have one transactional activity after the paddle raise in which everyone can drop their bid card and we collect them and draw a winner for like a $20, $25 donation so that it is more of a raffle drawing and we're teaching folks that there's a chance to win. We collect all the paddles. It's very quick. It's very simple. It's one transaction after you've raised all the money, but then includes everyone so it can be very accessible. So we try to play that fine line of making sure that we're teaching our donors to be donors. And today, Reggie, you've come and you have given us paddle raise school. So we appreciate that. We're going to take a short promotional break and we'll be right back with Reggie Rivers.
Ready to take your fundraising to the next level? Need to get unstuck in your event planning? Now's your chance to connect directly with the experts behind the fundraising elevator. Book a one-on-one consulting session with Sam for strategic planning and fundraising strategy, with Kristen for your programming and storytelling, or Mary for your registration and data tools. They're here to provide you personalized answers to all your event questions. Don't wait. Raise more at your next fundraising event. Book your session today at swaimstrategies.com. You can also find the link in our show notes.
Welcome back to the Fundraising Elevator. We've been in paddle raise school with Reggie Rivers, talking all things paddle raise. Right before the break, we were talking about sort of a lower dollar engagement, and we mentioned the word raffle. And Reggie pointed out to us during the break that every state has very different raffle laws. And so perhaps avoid a raffle and think of things like a drawing or a chance to win. There is oftentimes state regulations and lottery regulations that come with raffles. So do your homework, understand what's possible in your state. But there's lots of fun ways to sort of do that low dollar engagement. Kristen, let's invite Reggie to step into the fundraising elevator with us.
We ask all of our guests to join us in the fundraising elevator where we're all headed up. Reggie, what is one bit of wisdom that you would offer our fundraising superheroes so that they may also head up?
Oh, well, I think you guys are the fundraising elevator, and I instantly thought of the fundraising escalator, where you just took one step, but 20 seconds later, you're 10, 20 feet off the ground because the thing you stepped onto was moving in the direction you want to move in. And so I think the tip that I would offer is that there's the 4 F's of fundraising. There's fundraising, there's friend raising, there's fun raising, like just having a good time, and then there's fund praising. And so understanding what type of event you're doing, most events have all 4 of those in it. Now explaining what they are, but understanding what type of event you do is going to be the biggest key to doing a paddle raiser. So if you're doing a fundraiser, that means number one goal is to raise money, share your mission, explain why it's important, get those donations in. That is a great candidate for a paddle raiser. Another one is a fund praiser. We call that an event where you're recognizing some industry of business who has done a lot for your charity or the type of work that your charity does. And so by giving that honor to that titan then invites his or her pool of supporters, and then all the vendors who do business with that titan's business, they all want to buy tables, they all want to be there. That can be the best environment for a paddle raiser, that type of event where you're giving an award to somebody. A friend raiser typically is not a great time for a paddle raiser. Like Susan G. Komen can do friend raisers, like with a group of teachers. Like we would never look at teachers and say, hey, there's 700 teachers in the room, and this is a great fundraising environment. Not for anybody else except for Susan G. Komen, because all those teachers are connected to people, and they maybe are breast cancer survivors, or their mom is, or somebody in their family, and so now they're going to go out and be ambassadors. So a fundraiser is really powerful, but not a great environment for a paddle raiser. And then the fourth type is a fundraiser, which is sometimes you're throwing a concert because you just want people to come and have a good time, or you're doing a 5K race, or there's something else like that where the emphasis on doing this fun thing. That's not a great environment for a paddle raiser either. And so we really say the fundraiser and the fund praiser, that when the emphasis of your event is on those two things, that's the prime time to do a paddle raiser.
I love it.
Yep.
Well, Reggie, how do folks find you if they want to get a hold of you or work with you?
We are the Gala team, THEGALA team, and I'm Reggie Rivers. It's easy to find me. If you look for Reggie Rivers, spell it with 2 G's, because that's how we roll.
And Reggie, you're based in Colorado, but do you work outside the Colorado area?
We do, yes, ma'am. We're all over the country. I started just a 30-second history of my company. I started the company back in 2013. That first year, I did 13 events. Now we're a team of 23 people. We'll do about 175 events this year. 80% of the events we do are in Colorado, but we travel all over the country.
Okay.
Well, I cannot endorse enough the importance of hiring a professional when it comes to your paddle raise and having a professional benefit auctioneer on your stage. There are very few people that do what you do well, and we appreciate your work. We're big fans of the Gala team. We have a number of other folks that we recommend in other markets if you're looking for resources. But there aren't that many of you who really are embracing the collective action, the feel good, the excitement, and really maximizing those dollars raised. So thank you for being a pioneer in that space. Thank you for joining us today. And we're so glad to have you on the Fundraising Elevator.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for your passion for helping charities learn this and master it. I really appreciate that.
Have a great day, everyone.
Take care.
The Fundraising Elevator is produced by Swaim Strategies at the studios of the AV department. The program is produced and directed by Steve Osborne, with audio engineering and original music by Dwayne Anderson and Heidi Christensen. Video production by John Collier. Graphic design by Pendulum Creative Group. And voiceover by Josh Boykin.
Hey y'all, it's Kristen. Before we leave, I want to ask for your help to make the podcast grow. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please like, follow, and subscribe to the Fundraising Elevator. And if you're getting a lot out of the show, share it with a friend. Leave us a review. These things help make sure that the podcast continues heading up. Thanks so much for being here and tuning in.
Are you ready to engage supporters and grow your base with your own podcast? Then let us introduce you to our partners at the AV department in Portland, Oregon. In addition to delivering exceptional live event audiovisual production and videography, they also have a top-tier production studio and an expert team ready to take your content ideas to the next level. Contact the AV department to schedule a consultation and start bringing your podcast vision to life.